Good morning. Welcome to the 3MFAers podcast. I'm Brandon McPherson, and I'm here with Josh Sturr.
What's up? Top of the morning.
And Caleb John Cushing.
Yaga Shamash, my name is Caleb. Welcome to 3MFAers podcast.
I don't know what language was that.
What do you mean? That's what Borat says.
Got it.
I wanted to do an impression, but then I chickened out at the very last second.
Aww.
So I know. But hi.
I was wondering what language they were speaking the entire time.
Well, I don't think it's a real language.
That was the other thing. So it's not a real language.
He's purposefully like.
I don't think it's a real language, but it's in the vein of like an Eastern European.
Yeah, he's supposed to be Kazakhstani. I don't know if that's how you say that, but he's supposed to be
what about that?
Kazakhstan.
What about that improv then? If it's not a real language,
no, I'm sure it is a real language. But I don't know if Yaga Shamash is. Who would have thought that in 2020 Borat would be relevant? By the way, like people would be still doing Borat impressions.
What do we?
If you can't tell already, today we will be speaking about Borat 2, his Amazon film, which you can find on Amazon Prime, and we'll also be talking about Ghostbusters. So it's a pretty...
Which I know sound weird and may not have like exclusively things, but there's a tie to it. Or no, am I just trying to make stuff up?
No. There's a comedic tie to it for sure.
They're both very anti-Semitic.
Well, okay, hold on. If we're going to get into that, I do want to say, so I just watched Borat this morning, and fantastic, obviously. But my favorite scene by a wide margin was Borat going into the synagogue and that old Jewish lady who just beats him down with kindness. It was a beautiful scene. I had tears in my eyes. She
was a real Holocaust survivor, and she actually passed away after they shot that shortly after.
Oh, really?
Her name is Judith
R.I.P.
Evans. That I think, that's one of the highlights of the. So I personally think the movie's great. Yeah. I went in kind of knowing or like assuming it wasn't going to be as great as the first one, just by like virtue of like that was such a surprise and it came out of nowhere and it's very unique. And this Borat's subsequent movie film, as its full title is known, it's going for like a very different style. Like the first one was very much like Sacha Baron Cohen is like improvising around these like people, trying to like get them to do and admit to like their horrible like thoughts and feelings. Yeah. Like it's very much like, and then this is definitely, you can tell it's way more scripted. Like this is a narrative that they constructed with there's like some improv moments.
100%. Yeah.
And a lot of people have been like, not that big about that, but I thought it was really smart because like they even talk about it in the movie, like where Borat's like recognizable and you can't get away with that.
That I did appreciate
in the same way. Yeah. Because he's so famous. Yeah. The people in Texas being like, hey, it's Borat. And he's like running away. He's like, no, I'm not. So they had to kind of, and by constructing the narrative, you get all the stuff with his daughter, which is like what, holy shit, she's amazing.
I mean, that's, can we for a second? I mean, she is going to be a superstar and should be. Because
undoubtedly. She was, I liked her better than him in some points even.
Yep.
Like,
what a crazy project to jump into, because Sacha Baron Cohen's comedy, like that, making these characters and kind of doing these kind of like in-person kind of unscripted kind of scenario interview things, like to like jump on a project to be like, hey, this is your character and you're going to pretty much have to most of the time improvise in character, go. How like I would have been stressed the fuck out, but also like how liberating, because you have that character to kind of hide behind it. Like it's not you, so you can say all those things, like the interview at not the abortion clinic, but like the church
Catholic
kind of
one, yeah.
That was just
that one was
a great setup
crazy.
And a great just like.
Well, it's because immediately what they're going to do with it, but then you don't know how the other person's going to react, and he's just like, that's not important right now. And it's like, you're fucking insane.
It's like the guy who nails her back into the crate.
Yeah, that was fun. And then he just gives him some cash and he's like, okay, cool. The craziest, and sorry, I know Brandon, you had a point, but just the craziest one like that, in my opinion, was at the plastic surgeon. When she goes, would you do a sex attack on me? And he goes, if your dad wasn't here.
Oh my God.
You're on fucking just the way that he is able to make people comfortable enough to reveal how monstrous they are. That's such a talent, because I don't know anyone else who can pull that off like him. And obviously she's really great at it too.
Well, especially in 2020, because like you see cameras, you see these like kind of characters, like I would like obvious characters, but I guess you have to really pick the people you kind of interact with.
Yeah, well, these people are so fucking ignorant that they don't even get that this is clearly supposed to be a joke.
Like the bit with the phone, right? When he goes in to buy the phone, I wonder how many places they had to go into until somebody wasn't like, oh, it's Borat or it's Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah.
And then when they finally found a guy who didn't know him, then you get to do it. Like, I wonder how much research goes into that just to find somebody who doesn't know who you are.
I feel like that might have been a little scripted though, especially because it comes back at the end,
right?
With his boss and is on the phone. It's like, we have your fuck. What?
But
I don't even remember.
How much better would that be if it wasn't? I mean, you're right. It's that's definitely.
Well, there are moments like that, Brandon, for sure, where I feel like they're not. Like I think that the fax machine guy might not have been scripted because he seemed really genuine. He seemed really genuine about it.
But he had the company wasn't called PMS, like that wasn't the real sign. That was just them making fun of because it was printing mail, like something, and scanning, and it was PMS.
I didn't even pick up on that. That's hilarious.
I totally missed that.
There was a big sign that was like PMS, and I'm like, that can't be.
I mean, I don't know. You see shit like that out. Remember, there's like whenever we would walk to the studio, like on 40 whatever street, there's that
there's
fucking dikes like right above the shit happens like that. But just because that guy was like very like reading out those facts, like,
well, and because they were treating him like texts, right?
Yeah.
So text him.
Can you write him sup?
I need America's fax machine. Yeah, sup. And he goes, sup.
What I wanted to say was, Josh, that was kind of my biggest question, even going into this movie and after it, was I don't think that as Sacha Baron Cohen, you can even approach the idea to this movie unless you've already met this specific actress. And you're like, oh, she can do this. Like, I don't think this movie went the other way. I don't think he wrote it and figured it out and then cast her. Personally, I just don't think you can do that. I don't think you can expect to find anyone
there has
else
to be
as good as you are.
I feel like he definitely like, I'm going to have a daughter now. Like, I don't think, because, but what I'll say is I feel like he built the specific tutor character because if you look her up, she like is from the top, like, drama school in Bulgaria.
Right. Yeah.
So she clearly is like very,
and she's been working. Apparently somebody said she was on Fleabag recently as well.
There you go. That's interesting. I can see her working really well in that environment.
So that's the thing though. Like for me, just going into it, I was like, he must have met her somewhere before. And then built this. Like I don't know how you would do it the other way because
it
rides so much on her being as good at it as he is, and there's no one in the world as good at it as he is.
And it's a very fearless performance. The dance, the father-daughter dance, that's fucking nuts.
Well, that's what I wanted to go back. I wanted to go back to what Josh said, where you get to hide behind the character, where you do, but you also don't because it's in the real world. Like
he's almost do this shit.
He's almost died like a bunch of times, like and started riots and shit, And like she's a girl. Like what happens if like, she's being put in situations also where,
well, there's the big one at the end of the movie, which I don't know if do we want to go now or because there's other stuff I want to talk about. But
let's talk about other things because I have a really like I may fortunately have that kind of other viewpoint on it in terms of like So we have, obviously we're talking about Borat, the new Borat movie. When Caleb texted us to watch it, your text, I think, quote, was like, Borat is insane.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And it's pretty crazy. And so when we watched it, I remember liking the first one. I remember liking Bruno, which is another character of his that he has.
Bruno's fucking ridiculous.
And with this one, because of kind of how things are, I'm like, oh, interesting. I wonder how he's gonna what he's gonna set up, because the movie, the way it's paced and the way it's like structured, although more narrative with the daughter, is still kind of like there's a lot of like in between. Like the stuff you watch in a Borat movie are the interactions between strangers to see kind of just sometimes ridiculous, at least in my opinion. And so like any of the scenes like in the car or in the parking lot trying to figure out like where they're trying to establish like character and how he actually loves her and things like that. Like I wasn't very interested in that. I was more interested in like, okay, where's this going? That climax of like, oh, I'm going to take you to wedge you to all the, the president or the vice president, and then to Giuliani,
to Mike Pence,
and to Mike Pence. And so a lot of the stuff I'm sitting here going, okay, cool. I'm waiting for that next scene. And I think it's just because of the type of comedy it is, and that the pacing was a little slow at points, because I'm just like,
well, yeah, I mean, I totally hear you. And I think that's most people's opinion. Like if you go on like these online, people's are like, it's good, but I preferred the looser, more improvisational nature. I personally think like it's going clearly for a very different thing. But I think what it's doing, even though it's different, is still doing it well. Mm-hmm. Like I would probably say I prefer the first Borat, like out of the two of them. I think that's a masterpiece, like a modern comedic masterpiece in terms of what he was able to show, like real Americans' attitudes towards like, Jewish people or like immigrants or, gay people, what he was able to kind of bring to light was like, but you can't recreate that is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I think it was smart to go in a different direction with it and go for a more scripted narrative, because, and you still get those great moments. Like one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when they're arguing outside of the Uber, and she goes, look on Facebook, the Holocaust didn't even happen. And Borat goes, no. Like, it's so ridiculous. And then you think, that's a scripted moment between the two of them, but that Uber driver is waiting for those two people to like, and he's like, what the fuck is going on? You have to imagine he must be. So I think they found the balance. Totally. But I do hear what you're saying. I think part of it is a little less unique because it has fewer of those moments.
Yeah.
However, there is it all builds to one moment with America's Mayor, Rudolph Giuliani.
Wait, hold on. Before we do that, I wanted to speak on what we're talking about. Because Josh, I totally know what you mean. That makes perfect sense. I think what pulled me through that was I was so interested in seeing what this girl could bring to it.
Mm-hmm.
So then when like she was acting and all that, that's what I was watching. Because you're right. Like we know Sacha Baron Cohen is so good. And even as Borat and whatever, it's just, we're just going to take it for what it is when he's just acting. It's not, you know what I mean? Like we get it. You're Borat. You're the best at it. That's great. You know what I mean? We've now seen you do characters in major shit where you're also unbelievable. So like, I want to see you do that.
Yeah.
Now. Like I don't need to see
We've seen him in musical movies. We've seen him in dramatic
He's fucking
roles.
amazing in Sweeney Todd. He's
that's the thing. I love
even
Sacha
his
Baron
part
Cohen.
Like Les Mis. Like he was great as the hotel. I forget.
Kind of sucked, but in my opinion, I didn't like it. But he's great. Yeah,
but in terms of like the character that he played,
he was in the Trial of Chicago 7.
Yeah,
right. I haven't watched that yet.
I did watch that this week as well. I would love to kind of talk a little bit if we can about that. If you don't mind, Brandon. But
we'll wait for Brandon. Maybe
we'll wait for Brandon
because we have enough going on today.
But then he did that show, The Spy, too, which he got very a lot of incredible.
But no, I mean he's great. Yeah, you're right, Brandon. That it's not a question whether or not he's great. It's just I want to see him.
It's that's the thing. It's more so. It's just kind of in that space, Joss. I agree. It's not super interesting watching him be Borat as just the character without interacting with people, because we're like, okay, we get this. You're great at it. It's just not, But the girl, for me at least, I was just so interested in seeing what she was going to bring to the table that helped me get through those scenes. But you're right, that's definitely where I checked out for a minute or two each time, and then like would get on my phone, and then cool, like we're at Rudy Giuliani's
I think
place.
One of the most impressive things about the movie is that it did cross over into the beginning of the pandemic and the quarantine.
Yeah.
I laughed my fucking ass off when I didn't see it coming. And it's crazy because they showed us. They telegraphed it by injecting him with the fluid. I didn't even think about it.
Oh, yeah.
And then they're like, oh, by the way, Borat started the coronavirus. That is so. I don't know. It's very timely, and I think that's what people kind of are complaining about. Maybe some of them. Where the first Borat is timeless, but this is very rooted in 2020.
Yeah,
but I don't think that's a bad thing. Like I think it accomplishes its goal that it sets out to do really well.
The fact is, like, we're gonna see a lot of things start coming back up that deal with the coronavirus, because a lot of the network television shows that are coming back, they all are social distance. They all have masks on. Mm-hmm. They've all taken the circumstances that we're in and have written that into the world of all of these shows, which I think is like, I mean, you got to keep working. You got to keep these shows going. So why not build in the social distancing? You know, it's like sometimes I talk about devising and, you know, getting back together with people, but doing it like, how do we create and show like that connection between two characters 6 feet apart or through our phones?
Well, so I can speak to this a little bit right now. I was on a unnamed Disney FX set yesterday. And what they did was they're testing everybody 3 times a week. And then everybody has masks on. When the makeup people come in, everybody except for the actors keeps their masks on. The makeup people have face shields on. And then right up until, you know, after like a rehearsal and right up until shooting, then they take their masks off. So it's pretty, you know what I mean? So it's pretty, it feels pretty safe, you know, even with the masks off. Everybody's been super tested. So, I mean, they're doing a great job trying to keep these productions open now. But if you could write something where you're just wearing masks throughout, you don't have any of those issues.
Or like I think there was one like We Rise, I think is the show that I forget what her name is. Kerry Washington, I think. She's the lead actress in it. Don't quote me on that because I haven't seen the show. But it's like they have plexiglass around their desks. They have the face shields. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So they've written these characters to have these things so that, you know, whatever. That being said, though, like so we're going to see a lot of that come this spring, like come January when these shows start coming back. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, Borat was like, it's now started kind of, okay, we're in this world, how we deal with it. If it means spending a couple of weeks or whatever in the woods with these two like rednecks, you know, and like going to a rally or going to like a protest or something.
Nuts. That
it's
song.
Like the song is crazy, and it's how they like I'm sure they follow QAnon and everything like that, and it's like the idea that you can easily go to like a Trump based like rally or protest and like put on a little bit of a fat suit and a jean jacket and like a beard and like be like, you know, fuck Obama, he did terrible things, and like
bomb them like the Saudis did. This shit is crazy.
And everyone's just like, there was literally one person who did the
Heil Hitler, the Sig Heil. But even his 2 friends who he showed them as kind of sweet guys, but like the one guy literally says like, unfortunately these Democrats have the same rights as us, so we can't like it's like this, it's just this insane shit that he's able to get people comfortable enough to say. And I totally agree with what you're saying, but I'm sorry. We need to talk about Giuliani because it's the major talking point of the movie. Like even before the movie came out, it was like,
you know what, man?
Oh no! Don't you fucking defend Giuliani?
I'm not defending him. It's just not nearly as bad as what I thought it was before I saw the movie.
I have to say I'm on the same page as Brandon. When people said like awe about it, like, oh my god, what did Giuliani do? Like I thought I was gonna see some like jerking off. I didn't think I was gonna see just like a quick like grope of himself.
Was starting to do that though. Like
sure, but because Borat like barges in right when he's about, oh my god, you know, then you kind of lose that like, okay, but like was he, you know?
Well, I mean, if you actually let him whip his dick out, then you can argue that's entrapment. Like,
and you're dealing with Rudy Giuliani, so you're going to get the most sued. Actually, now I feel like I need to defend what I said before. What I mean is exactly what Josh said, is it's still really bad that he's there at all.
Yeah, he shouldn't be in the back room with a young reporter anyway. Right. He was drinking. Right. It's...
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, the implications of all of this shit is not... It's less about what you see him do.
No, but what me and Josh are saying is before watching the movie, when the news first came out, it sounded like he whipped his dick out, jerked it a bunch of times, like, and then fucking was like, you know, like, it sounded like a way more aggressive incident on his part.
Yeah, than just like him leaning back and maybe tucking in his shirt or maybe...
He wasn't tucking in his shirt. There's no I can't believe he said that. He was like, I was adjusting. It's like, you were adjusting for a long fucking time, pal.
Here's the thing. What it looked like to me was she took off his mic, right? That's what happened?
She was taking off his mic, but she was smart because she felt like she had to like kind of untuck his shirt to get the mic out. I think that's what...
they run the mic wire, usually... around your belt line, right? So that's why he had to tuck back in his thing. Anyway, I don't like defending him, so never mind.
No.
You shouldn't do it because you don't have to.
I would like to like. not defend him, but because he shouldn't have done it in the first place. But in terms of what Brandon and I think what we're getting at is like what we heard. I thought I was going to see something crazier than him putting his hand in his pants for like a couple seconds.
It was not a couple seconds, dude.
The way it's edited on TV, it really is like he leans back and he kind of like he's doing this, and then all of a sudden Borat comes in. Like it's literally no more than 5 seconds. You know what I mean? Like we can watch it right now. We can pause the episode.
We can. I feel like I don't know. Maybe it's because I went into it like with the maybe with. I don't want to say the understanding, but I went in knowing like, okay, there's no way that they're actually going to show him like literally pants on the ankles jerking off, because like I don't think that they would let it get that far.
Yeah,
but
it's not good for anybody.
I disagree with your statement that it is like brief. Like it is. I was watching and I felt like it was enough. He was clearly like.
His intentions were clear.
It was 100%. Like he was touching him. He was touching himself.
Yeah.
Like there's no way he was fucking tucking in his shirt. There's no way.
So ridiculous, man. And like again, like why? In what world? Why are you going up to this reporter's room?
Did you not see the signals she was clearly giving him, Brandon? She was touching his knee. Yeah. She was laughing at his jokes. Come on, that's like 101. Like
she was in the middle of an interview, which is like very like it's not ethically like you know what I mean?
It's not.
And I think what's also important to remember though, with why Borat. No, I'm serious. Like I'm being serious. With why Sasha ran in is because all of these stories that have come out about what happens like in these like closed meetings in these rooms with these men and these women, like to leave it. I think it was responsible of it. Like as much as maybe we all want to be like, yo, you should have waited to get something good and get the dirt. Like I don't know what he's gonna fucking do.
No,
because he thinks this woman is just a young reporter.
Right.
Yeah.
And exactly what we were talking about before. I mean, in this situation, that's what I was referring to before, Josh. You know, where it isn't just a character. You know, she's in that situation regardless of who she is.
100%. And to left his own devices, who
fucking knows?
Who fucking knows? I'm just saying, when like. The big breaking news scandal, like whatever, you know, I was thinking very like I went farther with it than what was edited and like shown on like in the movie. The
exactly,
but it's still 100% like it's bad. He should like come on, you know.
He's obviously like that's disgusting. Again, even starting with the point of why in the fuck are you there? What is wrong with you?
Any other administration and any other political affiliation, like his career would be over. But of course, you know, it's what you know. But sorry, but
on a little bit different note, I kept thinking about when he goes to the Mike Pence rally and he's dressed as Trump and he's got her over his shoulders running around. And then
he makes a good Trump. Like that was a good match.
Trump.
The little latex.
The rubber mask.
Then the security guy at the end who's just like, keep moving. I just kept imagining the conversation right after when they actually get him into a back room, or if somebody at some point is like, Sasha, move right now. Like they have to know it's him already at that point. 100%. As soon as they get close to him.
I've been question. Okay, I have question. Josh, words. Sorry, it's early morning Thursday. With movies like this, right? A lot of major films, a lot of films that are being filmed, they like title them a different title because they have different things for parking, for the lighting equipment, the sound equipment, everything. If you're on location for something, right? His crew has to be extremely small. Like, how has he said before how he tells people what he's doing in order to get that footage? Or because you have to understand that like these people like don't spend hours like getting set and going. They're just guerrilla style camera, just recording. But like after the fact, do they like let the people know like, hey, listen, you're on a movie? Because they obviously have to sign waivers for their faces to be shown, right?
So yeah, so apparently my brother was just telling me about this. I was just talking to him about this actually. So the woman who was like her babysitter, somebody started a GoFundMe for her, and apparently she's made like a bunch of money from that. So that's great.
That's awesome,
she was awesome. But apparently, and Josh, exactly what you're saying, from what I heard, they had told her that it was a documentary about like sex trafficking. So that's why she was taking it so seriously and so was so empathetic and trying to help. And so apparently, again, I just heard this, but apparently she's felt very betrayed by the whole thing because she thought it was a very real thing and she was trying to help that girl. So it seems like that's what they're doing. In different versions of, we're shooting this documentary or this
documentary. I mean, they kind of lie. I mean, with Borat, with the first Borat, like, I mean, he literally was like, I'm from Kazakhstan and I'm making a movie. Like, can I talk to you? And then that's why, you gotta trick these people. And, you can argue about like the ethics of like all of this. And I think you could have like a pretty interesting, philosophical debate about, what is, too far to get your movie.
Yeah.
I personally think that, his intentions are to kind of expose the underlying prejudices of like the common American people. Mm-hmm. And I think that, purpose justifies the means. I feel bad, that this good woman, Brandon, feels exploited. But I don't think she's looks bad.
No,
like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think they make her, I think, if anything, she should be, her contributions to the movie, like, even if it quote unquote wasn't real in terms of like Borat's daughter, she's still what she's saying and what she believes in. That's still important, and that's going to like reach people and be seen by people.
And so genuine from her too. And then, like,
I don't think she looks like the bad or like the fool at all in the way that some of these other fucking people do. And the people that deserve it, they deserve it. Right. Like that person at the crisis pregnancy center or the plastic surgeon, they deserve to have their fucking lives ruined because the shit that they were saying was ridiculous.
That shit. When he's like, I don't want to get into it. Never mind.
The guy was like, I would do a quote unquote sex attack on you if your dad wasn't here. That's fucking insane.
When the other guy was like, we can show you pictures of like the baby's heartbeat, and I'm like, one, you haven't even asked real questions. She swallowed a plastic baby.
Yeah. And that the whole thing is fucking ridiculous.
So we're just lying. I
gave her a baby behind dumpster. And it's like, it's the things that they're saying are so outrageous. And this person's like, yep, okay. Mm-hmm,
or,
I understand.
I mean, for example, probably the most jarring one is the girl who's a sugar baby talking to her.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, just giving her the lowdown. Just like, this is how it works. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be submissive.
It's
and
like,
you get money.
And she's like, I want old man near death. And she's like, that's good. That's like, good. That's right.
Dude, and then she opens the beer bottle and she's like, so never do that again.
So never do that again. Yeah, that was fucking funny too.
That's hilarious.
There's a lot.
No, there's a lot of great bits. I think at the Christian like pregnancy clinic, I think that had to be one of my favorites, only because it was set up so well with the cupcake. Yeah. And like, I just wanted to give her pleasure. And,
the thing is, it's so obvious what they're gonna go with it, but I still couldn't believe what I was watching.
Yeah.
Like how perfectly it unfolded, and they were like really making it obvious. I felt
they're like,
they were giving this guy every opportunity to realize, this is a joke. But he was still like, no, well,
God has a plan, and
God has a plan for everybody. Just a fucking farce. It's ridiculous. I don't know. Yeah. I thought the movie was great. I'd give it like a 4 out of 5. I think.
Yeah, it's up there. Yeah. 3.5 on me if we're rating quick.
Well, it's just I know we have other stuff we got to get to.
Sure. I'd
give it a 4. I think it'll hold up well.
Yeah. Well, Sacha Baron Cohen. You guys have probably already heard this speech, but there's that other speech the speech of his being recycled from like 4 or 5 years ago when he won like an award of some sort, and he was explaining why he. I guess I know if you like YouTube like Sacha Baron Cohen speech, award speech, reward, whatever, it'll pop up. But what he's saying is like, he does these characters to kind of what Caleb you said, like to shed light on people's prejudices that they already have. But it's like his job is to make them comfortable enough to kind of express that, to then show people like this is still out there, whatever. And he really kind of, it's almost a service to kind of, to kind of open people's eyes up to like, guys, we still have a lot of work to do in terms of like what the shit that's happening in our country, like around the world.
And especially if you keep in mind, when the first one came out, which is 2006, which is in the middle of American like Islamophobia and all of these things that were happening. We're in the middle of fucking George Bush and like all of these prejudices that weren't, a lot of people were turning a blind eye to, or they were like living blissfully and like purposefully ignorant of. And so I think he is a genius. I think it is super important. And the fact that he is so talented that he tricks these people into showing who they really are, I think he's incredible. And I like that speech a lot that you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
He's definitely a revolutionary person. just in his own right.
Yeah, once in a generation.
My buddy yesterday was comparing him to Charlie Chaplin, and I thought that was a pretty apt comparison.
He would, yeah, I think that's interesting. I think that's an interesting comparison.
Right.
It's a shame we never got his Queen movie he wanted to do.
I know.
He was going to be Freddie Mercury. I think he would be amazing as him.
There was a really there's a really good interview with him
Charlie
on Howard Stern talking about it and what happened, because apparently like Queen wanted it to be more about Queen and he wanted it to be about Freddie Mercury.
You've seen Bohemian Rhapsody, right? That's exactly what happened. Is that movie got kind of ruined because the living members of Queen were like, "Oh, it's about all of us," and it's like, "Well, no, you guys are great musicians, but it's Freddie Mercury's. He's Freddie Mercury." Yeah, I don't know, whatever. I can go on a whole rant about that. But anyway.
Wait. I just want to say my favorite line from the movie that killed me was when she's with, I can't remember who she's with, who she's talking to, but she's interviewing an older woman. And she's just like, no, my daddy is smartest man on whole flat earth. And I just died. I just thought that was so funny.
I think my favorite line was definitely when she goes, "Look, Facebook says Holocaust never happened," and Borat goes, "No." Like he collapses a little bit.
Even at the beginning when he's like, "Yes, in Kazakhstan we have Holocaust Remembrance Day." Yeah,
they celebrate, or just the whole conceit of him like, I've been in a labor prison camp for 14 years, and he has his sons, and then like, it's great. I think it's awesome.
It's just even one of those things where like none of those jokes would be funny if he wasn't Jewish, but he is. So
the fact that he is Jewish, yeah.
Like it's like, all right, great. Like again though, the last thing I'll say, but that moment with the elderly Jewish woman in the synagogue was beautiful. I mean, it really moved me.
And she's I feel like
that's somebody who's seen hate, and that's how she handles it. And
she's experienced one of the worst things in the history of all time, and she's treating this clearly insane man with compassion and kindness. Yeah. I feel like is probably maybe a little scripted. I have a really hard time believing that he walks into a synagogue with all of the fucking shit, like the puppets and the shit he was wearing. But that doesn't make that woman's interactions with him any less powerful, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Because he was wearing like fucking ridiculous. I mean, he was.
Well, yeah. He was like. It's funny because I told you guys last week that I just got done watching Jojo Rabbit, so that's kind of a big thing with the kid because he's imagining and like the woman, the girl in it, it's just kind of feeding him all of this like, oh yeah, we have wings, we have magic, we can read minds, sure, why not? And then having Borat come in like as a caricature of like pretty much all the very awful, like
he has like a puppet like as controlling the media and like
the media. He has a big Pinocchio nose and like bat wings and
even in the first one, right? It was so much more aggressive with all the fucking like the very beginning, the running of the Jews and all that.
The running of the Joe, now which they changed to the running of the Karen.
The run of the Karen, which is not coronavirus, so it's like there's the doctor and they beat the doctor up and
they beat the doctor up. Yeah, it's good. All right, fun. I think we've said everything. Go watch it. It's on Amazon Prime. Go watch it.
It's also like important to watch. It's important to watch.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, just for like social circles and to know what people are talking about.
I personally haven't seen like a funnier movie this year. So
that being
we saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That's true.
Yeah, it was pretty hilarious.
The black comedy. But sorry, Brandon. What else?
Well, I was going to say, I know you said you haven't seen anything else as funny, but I did. Last night, I watched an incredible movie. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It goes back a little bit, but it holds up. Ghostbusters. Guys, I haven't seen Ghostbusters in a while. It might be one of my favorite movies again. And I just don't care. I could watch Bill Murray do that character all fucking day. I haven't laughed as hard. There was no point in Borat where I laughed as hard as when Bill Murray's like, yes, it's true. This man has no dick. I died.
Yeah, that's right, Hammer. I think Brandon, you surprised me because every week, every pick is like your favorite or the best, and you just keep going. And I want to know, where's the peak? Where's that ceiling? Oh,
I'm enthusiastic. I like what it's about the present, Josh. It's about the present.
when we inevitably do the Shrek series.
Bro, the first Shrek, I hold its weight, I think, in my opinion.
Okay.
Oh, they all do.
All right.
Anyway. Farquaad.
Wait, I'm sorry, you don't like Justin Timberlake as the prince? Because then we might have to cancel this podcast.
Brandon, so tell us about Ghostbusters.
Yeah, tell us about Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
Why are we picked? It's the we're finishing up our Halloween cycle. Yes.
Spooky Halloween time.
I was so scared.
Well, we did Texas Chainsaw before, and that was so scary that I wanted to give us a light Halloween comedy.
I was so
break
spooked.
the mold. No, in a real way. I mean, I don't know what your guys' thoughts were, but I hadn't seen it in years. And just the comedic timing. I mean, I don't know. It hit the perfect tone for me. Thoughts, feelings, hates. Caleb?
Hates.
Hey,
That's not fair.
that's mean. You're being prejudiced.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. No, you. Sorry, you, Josh. You looked like you.
No, I mean, so
get to me.
I watched it on Freeform because that's the only way I could see it.
What's Freeform?
It's like the ABC. It used to be ABC Family. Network television. It's a
channel.
TV channel.
They do Harry Potter marathons every 3 fucking weeks.
That them and AMC or TN or whatever.
Dude, I'll tell you after.
No, so I watched it. I was able to find it to watch it, and the Ghostbusters is funny because I was thinking it's never really been like a big part of like my life. Like I've never sat down and be like, oh, I'm gonna watch Ghostbusters tonight, or I'm gonna like get my friends together and we're gonna watch Ghostbusters. Like it's a little bit before it's 6 years before my time, but probably then a good 15, 20 years before I really start getting into these comedy movies. Comedy wise, I think it's written well. I laughed. I chuckled. The scenarios is primed for a comedic movie. Like, but you have the great. You have Bill Murray, Rick Moranis, you got Sigourney Weaver, you got Dan Aykroyd,
yeah.
And like who co-wrote it with Harold Ramis?
Yeah, Ramis, I think.
Who also starred in it, and it's like
Ivan Reitman directed.
Yeah.
Yes. And so you kind of have these people like these like SNL alums and things like that who really kind of they have the timing, they're professionals on it. So like the delivery was good. And it was funny. I laughed. It's just kind of weird because it is kind of that movie that I always see on TV and I always catch the same like half hour towards the end or in the middle. And so, it was good. It was fine.
But exactly to that, Josh, I like it exactly how I've always felt about it. And like last night watching it, like I watched it with my buddy and it was the first time I think I've actually sat down and watched and let myself get invested at all in the movie. And then I was like, oh, cool. But the exact same. Yeah, that's been my experience with it up until this point. Monsieur Caleb?
So yeah, similarly, like I didn't like grow up. This wasn't like a movie that I grew up with in the way that I feel like a lot of people have. So it wasn't nostalgic for me. Like, yeah, it's like, it was always on TV. And I've caught stretches of it on TV, but I think this might be the first time I've sat like down to watch it all the way through. And I don't know, like, I don't know. I don't want to like, I would never go so far as to say this movie's bad. But I don't know. I'm really surprised because this is like a classic. People consider this to be like one of the movies.
It was a major, like,
and I just felt I was like, yeah, it's an 80s comedy. I didn't feel like it was as like, I wanted to be like, okay, this is fucking Ghostbusters. Cause like there are movies like, I understand why Star Wars has the fan base it does. Yeah. I understand why like other movies like maybe Jurassic Park or like, but this is like, I was just like, okay, yeah, there are funny moments. I think the action, like the special effects sometimes look like ass, but the action set pieces themselves, they're entertaining. They work well. So I get why people like it, but I was really surprised after I finished. I was like, this is like the movie everybody's like raving about. You know what I mean? I was
I do know what you mean. Actually, I had an interesting thing happen while trying to watch the movie that kind of speaks to exactly that. So I started watching it like Tuesday night, and I just couldn't get into it. I probably watched 45 minutes, half of the movie, and I was like, I'm gonna have to rewatch this because I'm just not like I nothing, like, you know what I mean? Like had it just been on TBS and I had turned to it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or whatever. And yeah, and then even on set at times I was like, in fucking holding and shit, I was like watching it on my phone. And the same thing, just no like connection. And then later
on your fucking telephone. Sorry.
Oh, you give me chills. And then later when I actually sat down, like put it on like the projector and like with a buddy, then it finally like hit. But yeah, it took 3 times of trying to watch it to like.
Well,
you know?
In my opinion, I mean, I this movie has such a weird structure. Like it is not. It's so because my things are very specific, and then I'm sure we'll talk about all the general like funny things that happen. But it's so like from like a writing perspective, there's no moment where the people are like doubting that there's a ghost and they have to discover a ghost, and then they show everyone that ghosts are real, and then everybody believes them. It's like, oh, I guess ghosts just exist in this universe, and that's not established at all. No. And then they go in to meet the Slimer
to disprove it the whole time.
No, listen, like for like Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray, right?
Yeah.
They're like, we're trying to prove like I'm a parapsychologist. What? And then Dan Aykroyd's like, there's a ghost in the library, and then they meet the Slimer, and they don't react at all as if they are surprised to find that yes, ghosts exist in this universe. And then there's no like, look, we got the ghost, and everybody's like, what? It just is like a montage on the news, like, and then the ghost hunters in New York are just getting all the. And to me, I'm just like, oh, okay, I guess ghosts exist, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
And then there's like the one guy who is like the villain. It says something about like the EPA, but everyone else just seems to acknowledge and believe that there are ghosts. So I don't know why this is the only guy.
It's more of like what they set up is like, yeah, ghosts apparently exist, but they're just working towards that first in New York.
No, in the tri-state area.
Yeah, sorry, but only in the tri-state
only in the tri-state area. It's just and like I understand that the comment in rebuttal is like it's a comedy, shut up. But it was like I'm trying to get into this movie that everybody says is a classic, and it's just paced so strangely. And it's not until halfway through the movie that even like they get in the uniforms and they have the equipment and like, I don't know. It was hard for me to get into.
Yeah. And I feel like, I mean, it starts off for me, I laughed because it starts off strong. Like you have like this kind of scene, and then that fucking theme song that everybody knows. It's like a really catchy fucking theme song.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Please. Who are you gonna call? Ghostbusters.
Who are you gonna call? The Ghostbusters.
You know, and so,
as if it's the most normal thing.
Exactly.
Because I don't know if you guys know this, but ghosts don't exist. So the fact that everybody in this movie was like, oh yeah, all right, evil spirits.
Right.
With no, I don't know. Sorry, I'm being a buzzkill, but
no, it's cool. I'm just trying to say something, but now I forgot. Maybe Ghost took it.
Well, it must not have been that important then.
No, we're talking pacing. But
I felt that it was paced oddly.
Well, that's probably why it took a little bit for Brandon to get into it, or for me to I watching it on the freeform. I did like there were commercials every so often, so like I really like I was on my phone because there was like 5 of them, and then it took me a little bit. Like I think the strongest part to kind of get me through was, you know, Rick Moranis' character and his bit of always locking himself out of the apartment and being super nutritious and trying to get the hot girl. Like the nerd and the hot girl kind of trope is like that was
80s.
Funny and very 80s. And I feel like
there's a lot of
you know, like that's for me, that's one of the strong points kind of got me through the first part of it, but it's, you know, but for me, it's the practical stuff. It's the, you know, they said it was the first comedy that had such an extensive special effects budget.
Yeah. I believe that. I was surprised at some of the set pieces that were happening.
Yeah,
so
like we're in the. Go ahead, Brandon.
Sorry, it was just real quick. So it was apparently a $30-something million budget. That's filmed in New York.
Insane.
But that's a big budget for the time, right? For especially for special effects for comedy,
like, you know, inflation.
And well, they didn't think that it was going to do very well, which is insane when you look at the cast, writers, and directors. But it made $200 million at the box office or something. So obviously it was
almost 300 million. It was like 280 million for this theatrical run. But it wasn't just on Earth. Like, because I was reading a little bit where Dan Aykroyd, when he was first writing the script,
wait, what?
It was supposed to be like. The two scientists or whatever, and with John Belushi, but he passed, and so they rewrote his character for Bill Murray, and they're supposed to be time traveling and things like that
in the movie. Okay, sorry, because what I heard you say, you were like, they made $280 million at the box office, but not just on Earth.
No, you said on Earth.
Oh, sorry.
Josh, you said it wasn't just unearthed, right? That's what you meant? Because it was written before for Belushi and him?
It wasn't just on Earth. I thought you meant that the movie
I'm sorry.
made... No. Well, not that I think you think that movies exist on other planets, but I just was confused at what you were saying. That's why I looked at you like...
Which they totally could if anybody is listening out in space.
Yeah, Caleb, don't fucking...
No, that was me being stupid. I'm sorry.
No,
I could not believe what you were saying.
Yeah, no, sometimes I have thoughts that... Like I have to finish the thought before I go off to another one.
That was my fault.
But an original version of the script had to do
not just on Earth. Yes,
that was a place not just on Earth. It was supposed to be like kind of intergalactical or entered the times, like time travel stuff like that. But legit was like I think the guy Ivan who directed it and produced it was like, this is going to be like, it's too much money, like it's like too big of a budget, this can't happen, you have to rewrite. And so him and Harold went back and rewrote this, put it in New York City for the most part, much cheaper to make. And they thought it was going to be a meh, but it became a cult classic. And then, well, I guess a real classic, not just a cult classic, because it's now
is like a mainstream, everybody loves.
It's been inducted into like the National Registry of something or other for significance.
Well, I mean, I think what it really comes down to is once you do, get into the movie. Like if you were watching this in theaters, there's no getting into it point. Like you're invested, right? And I think you have to be to really enjoy it because the comedy is their timing. It's all the little things they're doing. So once I found myself really watching it, then I loved it. But it's all the things that we were talking about before that makes that difficult in 2020.
Was there any points in there that stuck out to you more in terms of specific timing? Because for me, I saw more of like just different kind of characters, like attitudes and stuff like that were funny.
But for me, it's their comedic timing together, right? Like there's a couple lines. Like one that stuck out for me was when they're first trying to catch Slimer, and Dan Aykroyd he's like, I'm about to throw out the trap. Don't look into the trap. And he throws it out, and immediately, without missing a beat, the timing in it is so good, but he throws out the trap, and Harold Ramis goes, I looked in the trap, and he's just staring at it, and it's so deadpan, and it just killed me. And it's them working off each other, it's them knowing each other that well, having done so much, so many scenes on SCTV or SNL or whatever, and improv and things like that. It's just their comedic timing is so, so good. And they're all incredible characters on their own, incredible comedic actors on their own, so each one of them has their own moments. Also, by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but there was clearly a conversation that, as actors, we're all going to smoke cigarettes like idiots, and it's going to be hilarious. And the entire movie, their cigarettes are like, it's the weirdest thing ever. And they're like not smoking, they're just like attached to their lip, and it's just like hanging off the whole time.
Yeah, they're a little caricatures.
I would, sorry, Brandon.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to, I don't know if you had more to say, but I was going to like push back on you a little bit for that stuff. Because I personally, I feel like for me, what contributed to the kind of slower pace was like a sort of odd sense, like almost not, I don't want to say a lack of comedic timing, but it was like I felt like I could really tell that, and I've talked about this before, like I don't typically enjoy a lot of big studio comedy movies that do this because they sacrifice pacing and character writing for leaving things open for improv. And I felt that a lot in this movie. I feel like it actually drags the pace down quite a bit because they keep stopping and leaving room for Bill Murray's reaction shot to like have him say whatever because like most of his dialogue is improvised. And I feel like you can really tell because he's just kind of being himself. Like I disagree. Like I would never say that these people aren't funny actors, but I disagree that they're really strong characters because I feel like they're just all kind of being themselves. But especially because we know now that Dan Aykroyd's actually nuts.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Well, actually, that's hilarious. It's so funny I didn't make that connection because he's the biggest alien conspiracy system.
Yeah. So I was like, he just clearly believes all this shit that he wrote.
Well, his family, like everybody in his family writes about this kind of stuff.
Oh, really?
That's all in the
yeah. They're all nuts.
That's so much more. I love that, by the way, because that makes Ghostbusters so much better. But no, I guess though, even to that point, Caleb, even if they're not playing people as we know them themselves, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Rick Moranis, Ivan Reitman. I can't remember what the black guy's name. Carl what?
Do you think that was Carl Weathers?
No, I know it's not Carl.
Eddie,
Carl Weathers was in the movie. Isn't his name? Isn't the character's name Carl?
No,
character's name is Winston.
Winston Zedmore.
So we had this conversation because I was like, I thought the actor's name was Carl Weathers, and then Carl Weathers showed up in the movie.
It's Ernie Hudson.
Thank you, fucking Christ.
Was he in Police Academy?
Probably, but that's what's fucking another thing that's weird is he doesn't show up till halfway through the movie, and he doesn't have anything to do. He barely does anything. But it's because
he has one of my favorite lines too, though.
It's because the reason that is because they wanted Eddie Murphy to do it, and he said no. So when Eddie Murphy pulled out, they're like, "Oh, we'll rewrite it just to get somebody else." And it's just so weird because the iconography is that it's the four of them, but the black guy is not in the movie at all. Basically, barely. He's in like 3 scenes.
But his line when they're up fighting when they're fighting Sigourney Weaver, and he's like, "If somebody asks you if you're a god, you say yes."
Yeah, and there's like funny lines and stuff, but as talking like a structural, like as a a movie.
He comes really like 45 minutes into it,
and he's just like, I was looking at the job posting, and then there's no introduction of his character or what he's doing or what he's about, and then he disappears from the movie.
I mean, he serves the purpose of when they're in trouble, being able to be like, I just started working with these guys, and they're, I've seen shit that'll make you whatever. I can't remember whatever the joke is.
Yeah, but that's not why they get out of trouble. Bill Murray being like, the taxpayers and voters are going to be thankful. Like, do you know what I mean? It just seems like it was very like
improv for sure.
And I think like, people that maybe either like that style of comedy or like grew up with the movie, obviously are going to be more forgiving for that stuff. But I just found it to be so like, I found it to be kind of boring. Like I wasn't like hooked and I wasn't like invested. And the moments that I was engaged were like the more like, oh, they're fucking hunting ghosts now. And this is like, those action-y set pieces are more, because you can't just improv around that. Those are very structured.
I don't think that goes, I think that's exactly what me and Josh have been saying. Like I said, it took me 3 times trying to watch it in the last 3 days to like hit that point that I was like, oh, I'm loving every part of this now. Like, so I agree. And I think that's what Josh was saying too, is like, I only got to that point when I watched it the 3rd time and was like, really like,
Like I have to watch this.
Exactly. And then when I was like, and then I started watching everything they were doing, and then it became the same feeling as when we went to see like Middleditch and Schwartz or something like that. Where then I'm just loving watching them do whatever they're doing. You know what I mean? So it got to a point in the movie where anytime Dan Aykroyd makes a joke or I'm just gonna laugh because I'm just enjoying what they're doing as themselves.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is I couldn't get to that point.
Right, exactly. And more like it took me 3 times trying to watch the movie in 2 days to get to that point, which I think, when the movie came out, people probably didn't have that issue.
Well, it's very like, like we were saying earlier, it's very rooted in its time. Like that Bill Murray character, that's not funny now. He's really sleazy and he's very like unethical. His whole like dynamic with Sigourney Weaver is like really weird, and I was like, this is not a romantic, it's just strange. And like, but it's the 80s, like that kind of shit was what the movies were like.
His, like he did very similar characters on SNL when he I think that's part of the influence of giving him that character. They kind of wrote him in as like, hey, do what you do on Saturday Night Live. And I feel like, and that's the Generations kind of stuff, right? Like it works its way through, it works its way out. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking at these things now to be like, yes, you can watch a movie for somebody who you think is funny and everything they say is funny. But when we talk about kind of like last week with The Thing versus Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like as a movie, as like a substance, as the substance and what keeps you pulled in and engaged as a movie, this one didn't do as well of a job as I thought it would,
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I was expecting way more.
It's place and time, when you actually sit down and think about it.
No, and I think it's just a very interesting, especially an interesting thing that happened with that build, because the first time and a half watching it in the last couple days, again, like, got to the point where I was so unengaged that I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to rewatch this because I don't know what the fuck is happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna have anything to talk about because I don't know what's going on. So, and that's a movie I've seen before anyway. So it's like, it is a very weird thing that I haven't experienced yet. You know what I mean? That like, oh, then I did finally get into it, and when I got into it, I was like, oh shit, this might be like my favorite fucking movie right now. It's very odd. That,
would you say that this is a dad's movie? It's a dad movie?
I mean, it's almost 40 years old, so I'm sure there are like tons of dads now, young dads now. I just think this is like, okay, so I don't know how interested you guys are in talking about this, so I'll make it brief and we can move on. But it really, watching this really highlighted for me how absurd the uproar like a few years ago was. Over like, remember when they were like,
we're gonna reboot
it with all women.
Yeah.
And like a very certain demographic of sort of like a certain age group of men were like really upset. And then you watch this movie and I'm like, yeah, I see what this, it's like a frat boy movie kind of. And I'm not saying that's like good or bad inherently, but I'm just saying like, if I had grown up with it, I would have felt a stronger connection to it, but like, it's just like this. I don't feel like it's a comedic masterpiece. I feel like a lot of the humor is very dated. And I feel like the humor that's not dated, it's just because it's like, oh, we know these guys from whatever, SNL or Groundhog Day or like these other movies and we find them charming and funny.
Yeah.
But like to treat it like it's some like sacred text that's not open to being like, and it's extra funny because in my opinion, the funniest performances in the movie were from the women. Like, I thought Sigourney Weaver and Annie Potts were the best parts of the movie.
Wait, which one's Annie Potts? Is
the secretary.
Yeah,
she
was fantastic.
Yeah.
New York smoky.
She was my favorite.
She was great.
She was my favorite. And then Sigourney Weaver, like, she doesn't really have much of a character to work with, but like, she does a great job.
I was surprised about that. Like, Sigourney Weaver is obviously unbelievable, and most of the movie is her like posing around. Which is just like, it's very surprising. I don't know. I mean, she's so good. Let her. Well,
I wasn't surprised because it's an 80s comedy and she's the female lead. But I agree. Like, they waste, you have Sigourney Weaver. She's Ellen Ripley. Like, you can do more with her.
I kept turning and being like, she's not afraid of ghosts. She killed aliens. This is stupid.
She killed the alien. She killed aliens and also Alien Cubed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but that one was ridiculous.
I will go to bat for Alien Cubed.
I'll go to bat. I'll go to bat for Cube. You want to watch Cube? Because that's what's coming.
I actually like Cube.
I know. I love Cube too. We're definitely gonna have to
anyway.
Watch
Sorry. my point of saying and bringing all of this up was like, I couldn't really connect with it because it's such like a relic of its time, and I just could not help but think like, wow, like people really were like furious and showing their ass like a few years ago.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just fine. It's fine. It's a fun little movie. I had fun. There were moments where I definitely had fun. Like the whole shit at the end with like the
Marshmallow Man.
The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, but I was more thinking of the Gozor. Like the whole building,
whatever
the building blows up, and it's the pyramid to another dimension, and it's that model, and like it's fucking crazy, and all these guys are just like, oh,
clearly dressed as David Bowie, which is like hilarious.
Well, yeah, no, she was clearly doing like, that was inspired by Ziggy Stardust, very obviously. But yeah, it was just, it's like, this is like entertaining, but I just feel like most of the movie wasn't that. Most of the movie was like, oh, let's have Bill Murray be sort of like bored and sarcastic. Yeah, and I was like, I'm not into that.
It just hit a good, the last time I watched it, exactly that just hit a good thing for me. And then I just like cracked up,
Yeah, and I think to the point of the remake or the reboot in 2016 with the women, like that's kind of, it just kind of amplifies what we were talking about in terms of generational and like the comedy at the time. Like those women individually, I think are all super funny and like putting themselves in that ridiculous situation. So like I would say our generation, if you were to put in the time, if you're into that kind of stuff, like I probably, I haven't seen it probably since it came out, so I can't, please don't like hold me to this, but if I were to watch both of them back to back, I would probably think the later is funnier because they're doing the humor that I'm used to on like the SNL these days, or just that kind of what's going, especially with Kate McKinnon and Kristen Wiig and things like that, and Melissa McCarthy. Like I think they're all just great.
Yeah.
And like for me, that's like cool, but totally what Caleb was saying, like people were red. People were seeing red.
People were so angry for no, and it's like it's just the movie. It's just the movie.
And you know what's interesting too? There's another one coming out. So there's Ghostbusters.
Next year,
and it's
Afterlife.
pretty much and it looks like Ghostbusters Stranger Things. And I love.
Well, I mean, it very clearly is they're capitalizing. Well, and that's like, you know, I don't think the new movie is good, like, or the 2016 movie is good, but it's not because it's women.
Right.
It's just because it's a lazy studio cash grab remake.
Exactly.
Like it's not inspired.
But like,
at least this one, you know, Dan Aykroyd had an idea and he wrote it, and it came out
is that
of
what happened?
something.
Good, cool.
Yeah,
cool,
no,
cool,
it's a direct sequel to.
No, I'm talking about the original. Sorry. The original is like is born out of Dan Aykroyd wanting to tell a story. This new one, it looks like, Stranger Things is popular. We have this IP. Let's just do this.
Well, and also it's I think the kids from Stranger Things, there's like 2 of them in it.
It's Finn Wolfhard.
Yeah, but I think there might be another one of them in it too.
Maybe. I don't know. But I don't know. It's just, it seems like, because everything has to be like an epic action thing now, which is just so weird. Because again, like watching Ghostbusters, I'm like, why is this the property that's building a franchise? It's just a silly movie.
But also, even when certain things came on screen, like the car or Slimer, the Marshmallow Man, they're such big symbols. Do you know what I mean? And that's
they're super recognizable. Like,
and it's the marketing right?
So it's been a costume forever and on Halloween.
Exactly that, right? You know? So like that's why, Caleb. It's that the IP is so much money in merchandising, you know?
But no, I understand that, but I'm asking why. Like I'm saying, like I understand that there's like really like this movie has funny. Great, very recognizable iconography. Like I before I even knew what a Ghostbuster was, I knew about the proton packs. I knew like what the suit looked like. I knew what the car looked like. But I'm saying my point is that I'm kind of surprised that this is the movie that took off. You know, that this movie became that popular, because to me, I just look at it like it's a silly comedy.
It's kind of what we were talking about before, though, because even at the time, while it's a silly comedy, the special effects was the first thing anybody had seen like that in a movie like this, in a comedy at all. So as we're talking about it as this comedy where we're purely talking about, you know, their comedic timing and whether we enjoyed it or not and the sensibility of the comedy, the reality, it was a spectacle when it came out. It was a massive spectacle, like a huge, you know, that's what, even more so seemingly than the comedy in itself, what got people was the special effects and the iconography and all of that. So having the giant Marshmallow Man walking around was something that people hadn't seen, you know, but we grew up with it. So it doesn't, you know, that came on and I chuckled, but I wasn't like, whoa. It wasn't, you know, also special effects.
This is a weird voice you just did. I wasn't like,
wow.
That's like, it's a very South Park voice.
That's what I was going for.
There you go.
But yeah, so, I mean, it's definitely a good question, but I think from what I've read, that is a major part of it too.
Sure. I mean, I can see that.
You know,
it's so funny because I feel like the special, like specifically those dogs when they were running around chasing Rick Moranis. So this looks like fucking shit. It looks this is so bad. But then, like, I like, you know, the streams looked really nice. I thought the colors and the way they were moving around, that looked good. I liked the whole, you know, again, like at the very end, the opening to the other ghost dimension or whatever looked cool.
With that weird like glass door, I was like, oh, that's a good choice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing with like, but like the dogs when they were moving were awful, but when they were like just the shots of the heads and the actual were great.
You could tell they were practical.
Because they were practical. They were created. And then like the same thing with like the eggs cooking on the counter. Like however they built that to cook the fucking eggs
the smaller scale stuff was actually pretty like I liked the very beginning, the cards coming out of the library. And the books, like because that's what I'm saying. When you actually do it for real, it looks nice. And then when you have these CGI computer generated dogs chasing fucking Rick Moranis around Central Park, it looks silly.
Even the moment where they're about to go into the building at the end and the street gets fucked up and they like fall into the street and then come back up and everybody cheers, that's obviously all practical. And you don't see that
on a closed set and everything like that because the hotel looked fake as shit. But or like the apartment.
But I mean like the ground stuff, right? Where it's going down and that's all clearly mechanical. And like you just never see that anymore. So that even watching it, I was like, oh, it doesn't look particularly like, oh, this is how, but I was like, this is so cool to watch.
It definitely made me appreciate and think about like the editing kind of stuff, because going from those outside shots with everybody to having as best as of a looking set and street where that's obviously elevated for it to go down so they can fall into the hole.
Yes. Laid
over like, probably some practical things they put back outside to make it look like it had just happened. I thought it was clever. The effects people and the technicians in movie making are definitely experts, and they should always get awards and for like, the work that they do. Outside.
I think it's very easy to not give those types of jobs their credit because I can see now maybe more why that movie. I'm sure like in '84 watching that on the big screen was really
that's cool, right. Impressive. That's the thing you gotta remember. It was such a.
But I'm just like, I don't know. I get shit every time I say this. I genuinely don't really understand why Bill Murray is such a star because to me, he just seems so fucking like ungrateful, and he seems so like never wants to be there.
I read there was an issue with the production. This is me doing my little like thing, but like he never actually ever like kind of commits to like an agreement or anything like that, and he always waits to the last minute to like sign on to anything. So it does kind of, with just kind of those things, it does kind of feel like he is kind of that. He kind of goes around with like some air about him that I don't know.
He's a very arrogant person. You can tell the way that he holds himself.
But that's just like, for me personally, that is what got me when watching it, because he skates over it. And maybe Caleb, it didn't work for you, right? Like in just that, like the arrogance came out, but I thought it was just a line of like, I don't know. And it's not a character thing. It seems very much like a Bill Murray thing, but a line of, yes, there's that arrogance, but just a calmness with himself and that dry humor. Just it makes more sense when you extrapolate it to who we've heard he is now, right? Every story you hear about him in New York is the funniest fucking thing you've ever heard, right? The story that everybody's heard about him going to somebody's table and grabbing a chicken wing, taking a bite out of it and being like, tell everybody, they're not going to believe you, and like walking away. Or anytime, there's countless stories about him in Central Park walking up to like a kickball game and just walking up and kicking it and then like refusing to run the bases and just walking away. And just things like that. Just being Bill Murray.
It's so funny because hearing that makes me mad.
Really?
That's kind of a dick move. Like, give me back my chicken.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing is some people like think that stuff's really funny, and then other people think it's really annoying. Like, I'm talking more broadly now, not just about Ghostbusters, but like his whole like career. Like I watch him and he's just like, especially when he's older now, it's just like it seems like he just has such contempt for like this job that made him rich and famous. Like he just seems so uninterested all the time. And there's stuff like Groundhog Day, and there's stuff like other, he has these appearances throughout. Like he's got some, when he works with Wes Anderson, you can tell he's really invested. But overall, I just don't get it. I've never found him to be a super interesting guy.
I grew up in a movie called Meatballs because it was camp I
thought
went to.
About that.
Yeah,
it's the same guy, Ivan Reitman. That's why Bill Murray's in this movie.
That's why, but it's also what happened was too, like that movie wouldn't have been made without Bill Murray. Like it was one of those situations. Yeah, and a lot of it's obviously like him improvising and having fun, but when you watch that movie, it is a different feeling. There isn't that like he is that. It's a Bill Murray character, so he's very he is arrogant and overconfident and all of that, but you can tell there's a different, like there's a lot of heart in it. Like he works with there's a main kid, and it's a different feeling from Bill Murray. Like you can tell he's invested in the project,
Yeah, but I'm saying for me, like I feel like that is a rare thing.
Yeah, no, but that's I guess one of my starting points with Bill Murray is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Meatballs came before.
Yeah, it was the 70s. Like I feel like it was 79. Maybe.
Brandon, real quick, I want to just highlight, what did you do with your shoulders?
What do you mean?
You were talking about Bill Murray and you were like...
You're doing a little dance.
You were doing a little thing.
I don't know.
Okay, we'll have the video, and so we're going to clip it because it looks really funny.
Yeah, I'm probably putting my hands in my pockets or something. Or like, you know what I mean? Or like just moving where my hands are resting. But I want to see.
No, I'll definitely, I'll get that to you. But we talked about this like way, like when we first started this podcast back in April, about like resting on your laurels type of idea.
Yeah,
and the way Bill Murray, like doing Ghostbusters, doing Meatballs, doing Groundhog's Day, like having his career on SNL, you know, he has people hold him to this, like, he's so funny, so dry. He can eat a chicken wing, kick a ball, and walk away, and it's fucking hilarious. But then now what Caleb has mentioned, like for the last 40 years, it's kind of just been almost 40 years. It's just kind of, he's been resting on his laurels. He knows who he is. He knows his stature, and he doesn't. It sounds to me that he's very much that.
Like when you hear a story about him, like he was like, I don't want to fucking stand, so I'll do your movie, but I'm going to sit in a chair the whole time. It's like, come on.
Yeah, but then
it's not for me. I'm like, I then can't separate the character. Like I'm supposed to be getting invested in this movie from the personality, and then just by virtue of being taken out of the experience.
I mean, but then what about something like Lost in Translation? That's him, right? Yeah, that
is him. I think that movie is really overrated. But that's one of the few times that he's like the character is that like he's playing a character that is sort of like dealing with ennui and like boredom. So it works more.
But that's a movie where it's not a real comedy either, right? That's a movie.
It's a drama.
He's invested. Yeah. He's, you know, like that. Yeah. It's a different thing when he's signing on for that, clearly.
Yeah. And I feel like that's more of an exception to.
I agree. Yeah. I agree.
But
that is an exception.
For Ghostbusters, I thought it had its charms. I thought it was fine. But I couldn't wrap my head around like the timeless classic.
But now you're really excited for Ghostbusters Stranger Things, right?
Yeah, that's I guess what I'm trying to say is that's my new most anticipated movie. It's like it just seems so like it's like, oh, who does everybody like? Paul Rudd, let's get him. Everybody likes Stranger Things, let's get this. Oh, it's just like, what? Fucking shut up. Like it's like whenever they make a new Jurassic World thing, I'm like, shut up, no one cares. Just stop. But that's just me. Funny. Sorry, I'm getting a little pessimistic.
Until I do the next Jurassic World Infinity. I don't know.
Jurassic World Infinity, where you go and Josh's character goes and makes he takes Jurassic Park. It is called Jurassic Planet, and he makes it on Mars. Boom. Caleb, write it. Done. Let's go. Jurassic Planet. Jurassic Planet.
Just because everything's fucking crazy in the news, like the big story got buried. They found water on the moon.
Yeah.
Really?
Apparently.
Isn't that crazy? Like, there's water on the moon.
I think they already knew there was water, but they found a lot more water than they thought.
So it's like, so you could build a Jurassic Park on the moon, is what I'm saying.
Jurassic Moon. I think it's a hit, boys.
It would. I can see it. It would be Jurassic World, and then like in the teaser trailer, and then the logo would cover the sun, and it would call Lunar Eclipse, and then like the orchestra sting, and then it would be a close up on Chris Pratt going like, my God, and then everyone would break the box office and everybody would see it even if it's bad. Anyway,
you created a dinosaur that's a genius and can breathe in space.
There's literally like a line in the first movie where he's like, well, maybe you shouldn't have done that. It's like, no shit, dumbass.
I actually I loved him in the first one. Okay. I thought he was fucking great. But Chris Pratt is another person that I generally enjoy.
Maybe you shouldn't have tried to create a new dinosaur. It's like, yeah, that's why we're here, Chris. That's not really helpful. Anyway, sorry. Ghostbusters. Yeah, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. He looked better than I thought he would in terms of like, moving around.
Even pacing wise, though, that was a little bit of an odd thing where like me and my buddy were watching, we're like arguing. I was like, is this in the first one or the second one? And then like it happened right at the end,
Happened like very at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and you could tell that that's something that like Dan Aykroyd found really funny, but I was just like, okay. Because they like close up on him, they zoom on him, and he's like, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And I'm like, shut up.
I thought that was super funny. I love it.
I mean, it's a different strokes.
But that's
I love we're different people, and we,
I think shit like Garth Marenghi is really funny, and then you guys are like, what is wrong with you?
By the way, after we watched, I don't know if you guys had the same thing, but I'm constantly now just seeing articles that are like entitled the Haunting of Garth Marenghi.
It's so because he was just in Bly Manor.
I know,
which is so funny. I don't know if you watched that show, but he plays in that. It's like an actual like dramatic character that has like this monologue, these two monologues, and I'm like, he's fine. Like he does a fine job. I would never say he's bad, but it's like, no, dude, you're Garth Marenghi. Like, what are you doing? But anyway,
so good. So I think it's about time to rate us little Ghostbusters. Anybody have any more thoughts on the movie?
I'm all tapped out.
I just wish that Annie Potts had a better career trajectory. I think she's great.
And I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
All right.
No, what did she not do much after this? Because she was fantastic in it.
She was in Toy Story. She's Bo Peep, and so like she had not really a big part. But then in the new one they made a couple of years ago, Toy Story 4, they made her like a main character.
Isn't Bo Peep like the whole
Well, because she started out as like she started out as maybe like a love interest for Woody, and then they don't like. Because then they introduced Jessie, and then in the third one, they don't even have her. But then in the new one, I don't know if you saw Toy Story 4, but she's like kind of the lead, or she's one of the leads. Yeah.
Great.
Which like they fucked over, but like they didn't give Buzz anything interesting to do. But then I don't know. Sorry. So, but my point was like that, but I don't really recognize her from anything else. And I think that's a shame because she was really fucking funny in this movie. Every time she said anything, I laughed.
I love that you just said they didn't give Buzz anything to do. I love that so much.
They didn't. I know, he had nothing, and because Tim Allen's a fucking crazy person too now. But anyway, sorry. What would you rate it, Brandon? Ghostbusters.
You know what, man? I'm gonna give it a. I really enjoyed it the last time I watched it. I got into it. I'm gonna give it a 4.
4. Okay. What about you, Josh? Sorry, I gotta write these down.
I'll give it a 3.
Yeah, I would probably give it a 3. Because, especially after we talked about it, I appreciate like some of the technical stuff a little more than I think reflecting on it. It just didn't grab me. Yeah,
which is like, it's so interesting. The beginning of the movie is very weirdly paced, and like they have to put a little effort into, it's odd. It's odd. And like, I think that's something to do with the times more so than anything. Like as we, like you said, totally. We talked about it and figured out the different things. It's so interesting though. Yeah. We're going to have to see if Ghostbusters Stranger Things is similar.
It's called Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yeah, which is,
just in case people are listening and they're like, really, guys?
Because they're bringing the franchise back from the dead.
They should have called it Ghostbusters Upside Down.
I'm sure Stranger Things has that trademarked.
That IP.
But
Ghostbusters.
What is Caleb? You're up next. So that was our Halloween cycle.
Deal with it.
Deal with it. We're moving on.
We did 4 very spooky, scary movies. Or 3 in a show. So last episode, we talked a little bit about Firefly, and I mentioned that I watched it because I studied. I took classes that studied kind of Chinese language and culture, and I mentioned we watched a lot. We watched a lot of movies in that class, and it got me nostalgic. And I realized that we've never seen any Wong Kar-wai movies, which is a filmmaker that I discovered through that class. He's one of the best filmmakers to ever exist. He did Hong Kong cinema. So I would like us to take a trip to Hong Kong, and we're going to watch a movie called Chungking Express, which is on the Criterion Channel. It's a classic. It's considered one of his best. It's a very interesting experience, but I think you guys will like it. What year? 94.
Oh, dope. So it's more modern for sure. I
don't know. I think it's great. It's on the Criterion Channel, so we can all watch it. And Chungking Express for next time.
Awesome.
Sweet. Sounds fun. Well, thank you guys very much for listening to 3M Affairs podcast talking about Borat 2 and Ghostbusters. You can find us at 3M Affairs podcast on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon. You can find Mr. Josh Stir at
Stir_Joshua on Instagram and Josh Stir on Facebook. I post periodically. I do the editing of the episodes. So if you like, I always post stuff like that. Please listen. We do have, by the time this comes out, our very special Halloween episode will be out. The Mask of the Red Death. So please check that out. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre just got released as well. So please check them out. They're fun conversations that we have, hanging out, shooting the shit. Mm-hmm. Caleb, where can we get Letterboxd?
Yeah, Letterboxd, you fucking dicks, because you still haven't signed up. But yeah, Letterboxd, it's great. Oh, do we have time, by the way, for just a quick story? Like, I don't know if you guys have anywhere to be.
Sure.
But so I talk about Letterboxd a lot, and I'll make it brief. And so what I like about it is that it is like a sense of community. That is really interesting. It's like like-minded people who like talking about this shit. This is what I like to do. And I did a thing called, I did like a secret Santa, like a secret cinema. So like I got somebody's profile that they didn't know, and I looked around and then recommended a movie that I think they would like. And I did. And the guy posted that he was really grateful because it became like one of his favorites now, and he specifically said, I probably would never have seen this if I hadn't been recommended it, but now it's like one of my favorites of all time. And that is like,
oh, I like that.
You know, that's just like why I even want to do this shit. You know what I mean? Like, I hope that like, if it's not you guys, you know, Brandon and Josh, if somebody listening is like, oh my God, I discovered this thing, or I thought about this thing that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. So I hope that you guys are getting something out of this. I love sharing. I love talking about this stuff. And that was just a cool experience I had.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
What was the movie, if you don't mind me asking?
I do mind you asking, actually. How dare you? No, just kidding. It's called The Handmaiden. It came out a few years ago. It's directed by Park Chan-wook. It's Korean, and it's on Amazon Prime. So you guys should probably check it out. I think it's awesome. But yeah, so that was just a cool thing, and you guys could have an experience like that if you signed up. So
Let's
for all the listeners, letterboxd.com/CJCASDS. But yeah,
cool.
That was beautiful. What a nice note to end on.
A nice note. All right. Anyway, the election's on Tuesday.
Well,
cut the feed.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
No. By the time
this is out, either we're going to be in a good mood or the world's already ended. But see you guys next week.